Hi, everybody, and welcome to my Boomer Buddies podcast, where we tell it like it was and is. Today, we're going to do a read between the lines segment of my Boomer Buddies podcast. I have my brother Randy's son, Bryan Reed, known to me as Flying Bryan. Bryan, welcome to the podcast. We're so glad you're here.
It's great to be a guest. I've seen every episode that's been released, and I'm excited to be a voice on this as well. Thanks for having me.
You're not a boomer. I'm glad you're watching boomer content. But again, a lot of the topics we have is relatable to every generation. Today, Bryan, I thought we would talk about coaching because I was a youth sports coach and you are. And I just want to talk about some commonalities with coaching kids. First of all, to me, to be a volunteer coach is an honor, mainly
Oh, yeah.
because we're chasing a passion. We get to be with our kids, but we're also helping other kids to become better versions of themselves. I coached baseball and you coached soccer. You played baseball as a kid. So, first of all, let's just start off. What are commonalities between soccer and baseball as far as coaching in your mind?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a lot of parallels for sure. Right now, I'm helping to coach soccer. Emily just kicked in, so actually Izzy is coaching that team, so I help with that. I've also
Nice.
done basketball. I've helped coach baseball in the past as well. And now the two oldest boys are focused on soccer, so there's a lot there. And really, it's all about understanding, thinking ahead, being intelligent, and sportsmanship at this age. I think that
Bingo.
baseball, it's all about, hey, I'm in my position. Ball comes to me, what do I do? Runner's here, who's here? If it goes over there, what do I do? Same thing with soccer. At this age, it's less about, okay, kick the ball forward and let's all chase it. It's ball comes to me, where's everyone else? What do I do? So I think that's the biggest parallel for baseball and soccer for sure.
I know in my case, whenever I would coach, the first practice was probably the most important because you're setting the tone. And I invited the parents to sit in the stands along with the kids, the players. And that's where I explained my philosophy of coaching. I also laid down the ground rules. And I also gave them an opportunity. If this is something that you're not comfortable with, feel free to let me know and we can make other arrangements. But I just wanted the parents to know a few things like when you're at the game, please be supportive. This is their reward after practicing. They're going to be playing and try not to coach from the stands. We want them to hear our voices, me and the assistant coaches, because they're trained to practice to hear us. And it'll get too confusing if too many people are yelling instructions. So just cheer, have fun. We want it to be a great experience.
Oh, 1,000%. I think that that initial meeting is so important, especially like you said earlier. We're volunteers. We're not doing this to get paid. This isn't my career by any stretch of the imagination. And so, in doing so, I want to make sure that everyone knows what wavelength I'm on. And now we're at the age where the parents drop their kids off and they're not hanging out at practice anymore. So, I want them to be able to trust what I'm doing with them, certainly, but also give them a chance to understand, hey, if I'm going to be coaching them a little bit harder, if I'm pushing the kids who I think can handle being pushed a little bit, it's not because I'm being hard on them. It's because they're ready for the challenge. And then the other side of the coin is if some parents have kids who don't take that criticism very well, or they thrive on the positive, which is where I tend to lie anyway, is a little more positive praise. I think you get a lot more out of one of my favorite things is if you look a kid in the eye and you give them some confidence, it's amazing what that'll do versus anything else. But then, like, moving on to the field, having the parents just chirping in a positive way is okay. I don't need 7,000 other coaches in the stands helping and putting in their input. I mean, think of it, if you're out there and all of a sudden you've got voices coming from every which direction, you're no longer engaged in the game. You're no longer having fun. You're thinking about what other people are trying to push you to do. And ultimately, we're out there watching kids become responsible adults eventually. That's what we're trying to mold them into. And it's hard to do that when you have 1,000 different talking heads out there.
Absolutely. And also, we are using strategy too. And sometimes, if somebody's yelling from the sideline, it might not
Hmm.
be what we want them to do out on the field. The other thing that I want to talk about each player, you mentioned that some are ready, they come to the field very skilled. They probably had some older siblings and gained an advantage from being with them all the time, but you get some inexperienced kids in there. And my goal is different for each kid. If a kid can barely throw or catch, by the end of the season, I want them to feel confident and comfortable being able to catch a ball and throw it. And I don't think I've ever been disappointed in that area with a young player. And of course, the kids that are competent already coming in, we want them to get even better and get them ready for the next level. And I have to say that there are a lot of wonderful parents that I have been involved with too, wanting to volunteer. A lot of the mothers are just top notch because they like to plan things, social things, and that helps with the bonding of the team. And
Yes.
there's some dads that do that too. They'll have grill outs and things like that. I'm all for team bonding and just making the players see what it's like to be on a team because that will help them in other areas of life. The other thing is we want to show them respect because sports is a metaphor for life. Baseball, I mentioned before we got on the air that sacrifices are part of baseball. You have a sacrifice bunt, you're giving
Yes.
yourself up to move runners ahead. You have a sacrifice fly to move runners up. And in life, sacrifices can be appreciated. And even if people don't recognize your sacrifice in life, you get a good feeling knowing that you helped in that
Oh,
situation. Another thing you mentioned and that we're volunteers, right? And if we get yelled at or something, we're there just to help the kids and, don't get too serious on us. You can come in and help too, is the way I look at it. And the other thing is we want
100%.
to treat the officials. We want to treat the officials with respect too. We don't want to show them up. Umpires are and referees, they're human. They make mistakes or what we perceive as coaches were mistakes. And I don't like coaches that get up there and wave their hands and yell and face the crowd like it's about them. It's about the kids. So what I would do is I would subtly, call time and calmly walk up to the umpire. I would have my back to the stands and I would have a discussion like, "Hey, Steve, you confident with what you saw there on that call?" If he goes, "Yep, I'm confident," I go, "Okay, thank you." I made my point, right? And I didn't show up anybody. And the
Mhm.
people in the stands have no idea what I said, right? Because my back was to them. I tried to do things like that. And I learned that from other coaches. There's just been so many people I learned from because I played. And then when it came time to help volunteer coach, being a player and translating that to teach kids is totally different, isn't it, Brian?
Oh, 1,000%. That's part of what I really like about coaching is like what you just said about teaching kids how to play is, oh, I went to school thinking I'd be a teacher. I definitely do not do that today, but I come from somewhat of a family of teachers and I always thought that that's what I'd like to do. And I think where that comes from is just kind of creating that aha moment for people. And even for myself too. It's what goes to what I tell the kids all the time is, you can either spend your energy filling up your own bucket and then you feel good, or you can help someone else fill their bucket. They feel good and you feel good. So it's a 2-for-1. I think that's a huge driver and why I think it's important to coach. It feels good to give back, first of all, but also I think that's, just a part of building a stronger community too. I go out to the stores now. I live in St. Michael, which is where I graduated high school. So it used to be a joke with my wife of, all right, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Who am I going to know from when I went to school? Now it's I go to the store. Who am I going to know from who I coached or from the kids' classes? Because I know a lot of these kids from the years of I did golf camps and basketball and soccer and baseball, and it's fun to get to know your community through that way. The last topic was talking about how you coach kids a little bit differently. You have some who go in there, they're ready to go. They've probably been doing it with their dad in the backyard for a long time. And then the ones who have maybe just kicked the ball a few different times. And there's moments still. I mean, I can think of one a couple weeks ago. We have on Liam's team some really talented kids and some kids who it's there, but they just haven't had enough experience yet. So I spent time with two of them and taught them like how to kick a soccer ball instead of the like kick it with your toe, which is not right, or a little scoop kick, which you're never going to get
Huh.
power. And I said, kind of walk through the steps of here's what you do. And all of a sudden they're ripping it with power and the smile on their face. And you can see them running over and telling their parents later. It's just a great feeling. And it feels like that's something that can carry in confidence for them through other things in life too. And that's what it's all about, Uncle. That's what it's all about.
I'm so glad you brought that up because to see the look on their faces is the reward. That's the pay to a volunteer coach.
100%.
Speaking of pay, volunteer coaches put a lot of their own money into it, right? Which is fine. We wouldn't do it if we didn't want to, right? All the latest gadgets to help these kids get better. I was up for trying to find those things to help improve, and now I have a garage full of those things that I'm looking to donate somewhere. But also, our cars, our portable locker rooms, they're never clean because we're always bringing equipment and kids, usually not just our own, sometimes other kids, to games and practices. And I'm just going to say this, I am a grandfather now. My two boys, I watched them from the beginning and helped coach them. I coached them as long as I could. And then I had to go in the stands and watch them, sit on my hands, and remember what it was like to be a coach and not to be critical because they're doing what they can on the field. And you'll have your own opinions and everything, but it was fun to just watch them grow. And I know your sons and your daughter, they're just, well, kind of in the beginning of all this. Bryan, the years go by fast. So I would just say enjoy it, drink every second in because before you know it, you'll be like me watching your grandson play.
Oh, I know. You're telling me. We just had earlier this fall our first real travel tournament where we drove down to Kansas City and did the overnight in the hotels, and it got the wheels spinning for the kids. And I'm looking forward to all those crazy. We went through it all. We had the fire alarms going off at midnight. We had the whole gamut of it all. So it was a great experience, and I can't wait for years more of it. I mean, it's a matter of time, I'm sure, before the kids are too cool and they don't want to spend time with dad. So, just the other day, an hour down to Waconia or across traffic to Maplewood, it's time in the car where you're talking with the kids and having fun, and then enjoying an experience with them at the game and decompressing on the way home, whether it be a win or a loss. And it's a great way to not force the time with the kids, but it's a way to get the time with the kids because they're now at the age where, they wake up, they're on their bikes and they're gone, and you can still do stuff like this together. So it's a good way to do it.
Absolutely. And that brought to mind that being coaches' kids, we now have coaches' kids, or I had coaches' kids. And whenever they were on the field, you would get accused of favoritism at times. And it's not really true in my mind. My kids, and I know it was the same with me when my dad coached me, your grandpa, he hit the ball a little harder to me. His expectations were higher for me and my brothers as well. So we didn't have it easier. He just expected more out of us. And in games, if anything, he might pull back on me in favor of some other kid to give him a chance. I can't say that for sure, but I know with me, I was very, very mindful of not showing favoritism to my kids when I coached. And I don't know if that's the same for you, Bryan, or how you feel about it.
I agree 100%. I would say, if anything, the bar is higher, the standard is higher. I know my kid and my coaching style, so I know that I can probably push harder on them, letting them be an example almost to other kids. Where if I see signs, I know how they react to, like, ooh, this is maybe a little too hard, and then I can have a conversation with them. I feel like if there's a situation where there's an odd man out, or sometimes if there's not a goalie, that's a position a lot of times kids don't want to volunteer for.
Hmm.
Jude, Liam, hop in goalie. You guys are the goalie. So a lot of times being the coach's kid can definitely be a hard thing. Your bar is set higher. Sometimes you're pushed to be the leader, whether they like it or not. Um, and spot on, and just almost not being conscious of it, but it's definitely in the subconscious of, I don't want to be accused of favoritism. Let's throw my kid in the fill-in spot and give someone else a little bit of shine. I think that's a really good topic because it's tough to be a coach's kid, and it's tough to have a kid who is as a coach on your team to figure out the right way to play it without politically feeling like you're swinging one way or another.
And it's too bad that you have to think that way, but you do. Also, you had mentioned on the rides home, you can break down film of what happened in the game, whether your kid wants to or not. As a coach, you want to do that to decompress and hopefully continue teaching. The teaching moment continues, long after the other kids have gone home and they've had their dinner. Coaches have to clean up and wait for all the kids to come and get picked up. And by the time you and your coaches' kids are going home, it's been a while. The kids, I think, I know that my two sons, watching them play all the way into college, it was pretty rewarding to see how their baseball IQ turned out. I mean, now it's like we'll watch games together and it's so fun. And they're teaching me things now. You're always, as a coach, learning. That's a fact, Bryan. You never know it all. And I
Oh
just
yeah.
want to put that out. And to any listeners out there that can relate to what we're talking about, go ahead and comment below about any memories or any stories about you if you coached or if you were a parent, and some feelings or some observations that you have. Put it down below in the comments. Make sure that you share, like, and subscribe on YouTube. And also, you can email me at myboomerbuddies4@gmail.com. Okay. So make sure that you
Okay.
check us out on Spotify and YouTube as well. And we'd love to hear your comments. My nephew, Bryan Reed, is my guest on My Boomer Buddies podcast. And so good to have him on here. We've done so many things together as uncle and nephew. We went to New York for Toy Fair, and that was a shining moment for me. I had a board game back then. My wife and I marketed them for a few years, music trivia. He loves music. We'll get into that in another episode. But Bryan, do you have any questions for me as far as coaching?
Yeah, I'm curious. Now, I'm now to the stage where our teams are remaining relatively static. We have created almost a soccer family, and I think it was fairly similar for you on the baseball side, having a lot of the same boys on the team and getting to know the moms and dads in the crowd. Have you guys stayed together? Do you keep pretty good contact with any of those families, even the years after the boys are done? They still got their gloves, but you're not in the dugout anymore.
That is a great question because for years we didn't take vacations as a family. Our vacation was going to Kansas City, for baseball or just traveling with these families, and we became pretty close. And I had a regular season team, and then I coached an all-star team from the league where my boys played. So for 3 years, we pretty much had the same kids on the team with a few changes here and there, but we became very close. And as head coach, I tried to be, you know, sociable and everything, but I also kept a little arm's length just because I thought that was the right way to do it. Looking back, what the heck, I should have just probably enjoyed it a little bit more. But I had a responsibility to the association to try to, at that point, it was about winning and giving a good experience. Where the regular season was, just let's get these kids experience and let the ones grow on the paths they're growing on and give them everything they need. Yeah, we stayed in touch for a little while, but naturally you kind of grow away. But I still have some, every once in a while, contact with people I coached with, or even some of the players, because as the kids grew older, they grew into men and they still hung out with my sons. And so they'd come over. It was wonderful because they didn't even knock. They just come in and just grab food. And that's I love that. Your auntie Sharon, she has a group that once a month they go out to different restaurants or the casino, and they have a active social group. So it was a social outlet for many years for the players, parents especially. And of course, the players, they knew each other from school, and they continued to be friends. And yeah, simply put, yes, but it's kind of diminished over the years. But we can plug in pretty quickly if we run into each other, and that has happened. So, Bryan,
Yep.
after my kids quit playing because they're adults now and they took up golf, became a paid coach for an organization called Pine Tar Academy, where I could take my years of experience and help kids that weren't my own kids, so I didn't have any skin in it, right? And it was very enjoyable to break down things with the young players. And you go down to 9-year olds, and here I'd watch my kids go to a pretty high level, and then you got to go back down and start over again. Well, I picked up a lot along the way, as it turned out. And it was fun to be able to relay that stuff to these kids. What Pine Tar Academy is, it's basically a outfit that gives kids a chance to get extra work in. If they have goals and their parents have goals for them to, say, play for the high school, and they want to get some more work in to achieve that goal, well, Pine Tar's there. And there's other outfits too. I like Pine Tar because it helped my boys. It developed their arms. Their arms became very strong, and they were both shortstops at the high school. They're a few years apart. So that was kind of rewarding to see the development through Pine Tars. I kept it going for me, Bryan, as a paid coach, which was kind of fun. And we'd go to tournaments in Kansas City and all over the Twin Cities where we're from. And it was pretty rewarding to see another generation of kids start from scratch and develop their game. And some want to go on into college, so they go through high school playing for Pine Tar. So it's just a neat opportunity. But I recently retired from that. I'll get a call from them every once in a while, but I'm having fun with what I'm doing now that I'm retired.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Pine Tar sounds like the perfect organization. And hearing Pine Tar too reminds me, I took my dog for a walk earlier today. And that's so perfect. I took my dog for a walk right before we did this podcast, and there's a wood bat baseball tournament happening at the park right behind our house.
Nice.
And there's a Wyzetta team, a St. Michael team, a Woodbury team, and it just brings back really good memories. Really, really good memories.
I remember playing. It was one of my last years of playing town ball at the field off of Fernbrook, right by your house. Your dad brought you down in a wagon, and yeah, good memories. Sports for kids is wonderful. You give a kid a baseball, and it unlocks so many future memories for them. Bryan, it's been
100%.
wonderful having you on the show. Been wanting to get you on my Boomer Buddies podcast for a while, and this has been a read between the lines episode. And we're going to do some more of these, Bryan, if you want to. Love to have you.
I'd love to be back. I'll make sure that the seat is warm for me. I'll look forward to content on music, sports, pop culture, all the nostalgic stuff. I feel like a boomer via osmosis just from my family. So I'll look forward to future conversations with you, Uncle.
Oh, thanks, Bryan. Yeah, we are a nostalgic family, and we look fondly to the past, not necessarily living in it, but looking fondly backwards. And Bryan, again, thank you for being on my Boomer Buddies podcast. For Flying Bryan Reed, I'm Rick Reed. What do you call me, Bryan?
Ravishing Rick Reed.
Yeah, we had that wrestling thing going on. Thank you for watching. Until next time, for my Boomer Buddies podcast, we'll see you around the block.
If you enjoy this podcast and are viewing on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button on your screen, and share it with your friends, and feel free to comment below. You can also hear us on Spotify and Buzzsprout. Feel free to email comments to myboomerbuddies4@gmail.com.